She was crying in the one place she thought was safe. Amara had always kept her pain hidden, her dignity intact despite everything. But today, in the CEO's empty office, the weight finally crushed her. The door opened behind her. She froze, tears streaming down her face, unable to move. The brooding billionaire stood watching. What he did next would change both their lives forever. 2-1. Setup Scene 1. Protagonist introduction. Amara Okonkwo was 28 years old, but her eyes held decades of struggle. She arrived at Titan Enterprises every morning at exactly 6:15 a.m., 45 minutes before her shift officially began. The extra time wasn't paid, but it gave her peace. Quiet moments before the building filled with executives who rarely saw her face. She was an administrative assistant, the kind of employee whose name appeared on directories but rarely in conversations. Her uniform was always immaculate despite being 3 years old. The blue blouse had been mended twice at the collar, invisible repairs she'd learned from her late mother. Her shoes were polished daily, though the leather had cracked along the sides. These small acts of maintenance were her rebellion against poverty, her quiet insistence that being poor didn't mean being careless. This morning, she organized files in the executive suite, her movements efficient and practiced. Just get through today, she thought, the mantra that had carried her through 5 years of this job. One day closer to paying off Mama's hospital bills. Her fingers trembled slightly as she sorted documents. Last night's dinner had been Gary and salt, her third meal that week without protein. The hunger gnawed at her, but she'd grown accustomed to that particular emptiness. There were worse pains. Through the window, Lagos sprawled beneath the rising sun, a city of dreams and disappointments. Somewhere in Mushin, her younger brother Chidi was probably getting ready for school, wearing the uniform she'd sacrificed 2 weeks' meals to buy. He was brilliant, her Chidi. He deserved better than their one-room apartment with its leaking roof and intermittent electricity. Amara caught her reflection in the glass door. Thin face, prominent cheekbones, eyes that had learned to hide everything. She was pretty once, people said, before struggle carved away the softness. Now she was just tired. Tired and invisible. Her phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Adeyemi, her landlady. Rent is 2 weeks overdue. Last warning. She closed her eyes, breathing slowly. The panic wanted to rise, but she pushed it down. Always down. There was no room for breaking, not when Chidi depended on her. Just get through today, she whispered to her reflection. Scene 2. Antagonist introduction. Ngozi Okafor-Williams was 32 and had never known want. She swept into Titan Enterprises at 9:30 a.m., 90 minutes after the official start time. Her Prada heels clicking against marble with the confidence of someone who knew rules were for other people. Her father sat on the company's board of directors. That single fact had shaped her entire existence. The Hermes bag on her arm cost more than Amara's annual salary. Her hair, Brazilian weave installed yesterday at Lagos's most exclusive salon, cascaded down her back in perfect waves. Everything about Ngozi screamed wealth. Her perfume, Chanel imported, her jewelry, gold excessive, her expression, entitled cruel. She'd earned nothing and inherited everything. A princess in a kingdom she didn't build. Her position as special projects consultant was nepotism wrapped in corporate language. She consulted on nothing, contributed less, and spent her days cultivating connections and crushing anyone who reminded her of vulnerability. Ngozi lived in Ikoyi, in a penthouse apartment her parents bought her 25th birthday. She drove a white Range Rover, changed her wardrobe seasonally, and vacationed in Dubai twice yearly. Her Instagram feed was a monument to excess. Champagne brunches, designer shopping bags, smirking selfies captioned with motivational quotes about working hard. But beneath the designer labels and practiced confidence lived a hollow space. Ngozi feared ordinariness the way some people feared death. She needed to be seen, admired, envied. And she needed others to be beneath her, clearly visibly beneath her, to feel secure in her position. People like Amara were particularly threatening. The quiet ones who worked with dignity, who seemed content with less. They reminded Ngozi that worth wasn't measured in handbags, that character existed independent of bank accounts. So she had made it her mission to remind them of their place. She spotted Amara in the hallway, arms full of files, head down as always. Still wearing those shoes, Amara? Ngozi's voice carried, designed to attract an audience. There's a cobbler in Yaba who works miracles. Or is that too expensive for your budget? Amara said nothing, keeping her eyes lowered. I'm trying to help, Ngozi continued, examining her manicured nails. Presentation matters in a professional environment. Some of us understand that. Some of us are human, Amara thought but didn't say. Instead, thank you, Ma. I'll remember that. Ngozi's smile sharpened. The quiet dignity in Amara's voice irritated her more than defiance would have. It suggested an internal life Ngozi couldn't touch. A strength money couldn't buy or break. She would fix that. Scene 3. The inciting incident. The breaking point came on a Wednesday afternoon, in the CEO's private office. Amara had been summoned to prepare the space for an evening board meeting. She organized documents, tested the projector, arranged water glasses with mathematical precision. The CEO, Mr. Obinna, was known for his exacting standards. Everything had to be perfect. She was adjusting the final chair when her phone rang. The hospital. Miss Okonkwo? The nurse's voice was professionally gentle, which meant bad news. Your brother had an asthma attack at school. He's stable now, but I'm coming. Amara's voice cracked. Chitty's inhaler. She'd been rationing it, making it last because the replacement cost 8,000 Nigerian naira she didn't have. This was her fault. She ended the call, hands shaking violently. The hospital was 40 minutes away. She needed to leave now, but the board meeting was in 3 hours, and she hadn't finished. The tears came suddenly, violently. 5 years of holding everything together, and it all shattered in the CEO's empty office. She sank into one of the leather chairs, face in her hands, sobbing with the kind of desperate abandon that only comes when you're certain you're alone. She didn't hear the door open. Miss Okonkwo. Amara's head snapped up. Her heart stopped. Mr. Obinna stood in the doorway, tall and imposing in his tailored suit, his expression unreadable. Theo. The man whose office she was crying in, whose chair she was sitting in, whose privacy she had violated with her breakdown. She shot to her feet, wiping frantically at her face. Sir, I'm so sorry, I didn't know you were. I was just finishing the setup and my brother. I'm sorry, I'll leave immediately. Sit down. His voice was quiet but carried absolute authority. Amara froze, caught between obedience and terror. Sir, I should sit down. She sat, perched on the edge of the chair, every muscle rigid. This was it. She'd be fired. She'd lose the job that barely kept Chitty fed and housed, all because she couldn't keep her misery private. Obinna walked to his desk, his movements measured. He was 41, though most guessed younger. His face was carved from stern lines, sharp jaw, intense eyes, mouth that rarely smiled. He'd built Titan Enterprises from nothing. A self-made billionaire in a country where most wealth was inherited. People feared him, respected him, but nobody claimed to know him. He pressed the button on his phone. Grace, clear my schedule for the next hour. And have security bring Miss Okonkwo's belongings to my office. Amara's stomach dropped. He was firing her now. Immediately. Her vision blurred with fresh tears. Sir, please, I need this job. My brother, he's in the hospital, and I'm all he has, and I know I shouldn't have. Where is your brother? The question caught her off guard. Lagos University Teaching Hospital. Obinna pulled out his phone, dialed. This is Obinna. I'm sending someone to LUTH for her brother. Chidi Okonkwo, pediatric ward. I want him transferred to a private room, full treatment, best available care. Send the bills to my personal account. He paused, listening. No, don't announce my involvement. Anonymous donation. He ended the call and looked at Amara, who sat frozen, unable to process what had just happened. Your brother will receive proper care, Obinna said. Go to him. Take the rest of the week off. Paid. I don't understand. You don't need to understand. You need to be with your family. Amara stared at him, this man whose reputation was built on ruthless business decisions and cold efficiency. His expression remained stern, giving nothing away but his eyes. There was something there. Recognition, maybe. Or memory. Why? She whispered. Because someone should have done the same for me once. They didn't. He turned to his computer, dismissing her with the gesture. Grace will arrange transportation. Go. Amara stood on shaking legs, moved toward the door, then turned back. Sir, I'll pay you back. Every naira. I promise. If you mention this to anyone, I'll deny it completely. Understood. She nodded, still unable to process the sudden shift in her reality. As the door closed behind her, Obinna sat back in his chair, staring at the space where she'd been crying. He'd come to retrieve a forgotten file and instead walked into someone else's nightmare. The kind of nightmare he remembered intimately. He pressed his fingers to his temples, seeing his younger self, 16 years old, watching his mother die because they couldn't afford the medication. Sitting in a hospital hallway, crying the same way Amara had cried, with the kind of desperation that comes from being utterly powerless. He'd built an empire to escape that powerlessness. But no amount of money erased the memory of that helplessness, that shame. Obinna opened his laptop, pulled up Amara's employment file. 5 years at Titan, perfect attendance until her mother's illness 2 years ago. After that, occasional absences always explained with apologetic notes. Performance reviews, exceptional. Salary, criminally low for someone with her dedication. He made a note to review the compensation structure for administrative staff. Then he made another call. Security? I want to know everything about Ngozi Okafor-Williams's interactions with Amara Okonkwo. Every conversation, every incident. Be discreet. He'd heard rumors of bullying, seen hints of cruelty in hallway exchanges. He'd ignored it, focused on larger corporate concerns. But something about finding Amara broken in his office had shifted a calculation in his chest. Some things deserved attention. Some people deserved protection. Scene 4. Secret observer revealed Obinna Nwosu hadn't always been a billionaire. That night, alone in his Ikoyi penthouse, he stood by floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lagos's glittering skyline. Each light represented someone's life, someone's struggle. Most of those lights lived in households like the one he'd escaped. His mother had been a cleaner at a corporate office in Victoria Island. She'd worked 3 jobs to keep him in school, to buy his books, to feed them both. He remembered her hands, permanently rough from chemicals, always moving, never resting. She'd been brilliant once, had dreams once, but poverty had crushed those dreams into dust. When she got sick, they had nothing. No savings, no insurance, no family with resources. He'd watched her fade over 3 months, watched the free clinic doctors shake their heads with practiced sympathy. If they'd had money, if someone had helped, she might have lived to see him graduate, to see him build the empire that now bore her maiden name. Titan for Titileo, the woman who'd sacrificed everything. He'd sworn then, sitting by her hospital bed with empty pockets and a full rage, that he would never be helpless again. That he would build something so large, so unshakable, that poverty could never touch him. He'd succeeded, but success had made him cold, efficient. He'd forgotten the faces behind the numbers, the stories behind the employee files. Until today, when he'd walked into his office and seen his teenage self sitting in that chair, crying the same tears he'd cried 25 years ago. Amara reminded him of his mother. Not in appearance but in that quality. Dignity under pressure, grace despite suffering. His mother had never complained, never begged, never lost her humanity even as illness and poverty destroyed her body. She'd remained kind until the end. He pulled up the security report on Ngozi Okafor-Williams. Page after page of small cruelties. Mocking comments about Amara's clothes, deliberate exclusion from team events, public humiliation disguised as jokes. A pattern of psychological abuse enabled by class privilege and institutional indifference. His jaw tightened. This would end. But Amara's situation went beyond stopping a bully. Her file painted a picture of someone drowning slowly. Rent arrears, brother's medical expenses, mother's funeral debts still unpaid. The hospital donation would help immediately, but she needed more. Stability. Opportunity. Hope. He could write a check, solve her problems with money. But he'd learned that direct charity often destroyed dignity, created dependence. His mother had refused handouts even when they were starving, had insisted on earning every naira. He understood that pride now, that need to maintain agency. No, this required a different approach. Subtle support that preserved her autonomy. Anonymous interventions that looked like luck, not pity. Obina drafted an email to his personal assistant, marked urgent and confidential. Research the following. 1. Amara Okonkwo's exact financial obligations. 2. Her brother's educational needs. 3. Scholarship and grant opportunities she qualifies for. 4. Career advancement paths within Titan. 5. Her skills, education, potential. Create a 12-month support plan. Odyssey. Untraceable. Make it look organic. He sent the email, then made one more call. Frank? I need surveillance on someone. Protective detail, not invasive. Amara Okonkwo, Titan administrative staff. I want to know if anyone bothers her, threatens her, makes her life difficult. And I want to know immediately. He ended the call and returned to the window. Somewhere in that sprawling city, Amara sat by her brother's hospital bed. Probably confused by the sudden upgrade in care. Probably scared it would disappear as quickly as it came. It wouldn't disappear. He would make certain of that. But Amara had no idea her life was about to change. She had no idea that her CEO had seen her at her most vulnerable, and instead of judging, had recognized himself. She had no idea that the man known for cold business decisions had made a different kind of decision tonight, one based entirely on memory and conscience. She had no idea she was no longer alone in her struggle. SCT-2. Rising Action Scene 5. Aftermath and daily struggle. Chidi recovered quickly in his new private room. Surrounded by equipment Amara had only seen in television dramas. The doctors were attentive, the medication immediate and effective. When she asked about the bill, the hospital administrator smiled mysteriously and said a generous benefactor had covered everything. Amara didn't believe in miracles, but she lacked the energy to question this one. She returned to work the following Monday, expecting to face consequences for her breakdown. Instead, she found her desk exactly as she'd left it, her projects reassigned to give her space, and a brief email from Mr. Nwosu's assistant. Welcome back. Take your time settling in. No mention of the incident. No judgment. Just simple, unexpected kindness. But reality waited with familiar cruelty. Her rent was still overdue, now 3 weeks instead of 2. Chidi needed new textbooks his scholarship didn't cover. The funeral home had started calling again about her mother's outstanding balance. The hospital miracle had bought her breathing room, but only for breathing. The drowning continued. Amara counted her remaining money on Tuesday night. 3,400 Nigerian nairas. Rent was 85,000 Nigerian nairas. She'd get paid in 10 days. But that salary was already allocated to a dozen debts. She calculated desperately, moving numbers around, trying to make the mathematics of poverty work out differently this time. They never did. She made Gary again for dinner, flavored with the last packet of sugar. Chidi complained mildly, but he was 12 and eating everything. She gave him most of her portion, claiming she'd eaten at work. The hunger had become constant now, a companion she'd learned to ignore. At night, she lay on their shared mattress, Chidi on one end, her on the other, and stared at ceiling stains. The building was decaying around them. Black mold in the corners, rats in the walls, neighbors screaming through paper-thin barriers. This was their life. This was what 5 years of working hard had earned. Don't cry, she told herself. Don't waste the water. But sometimes she did cry, silently, turned away from Chidi. She cried for the dream she'd abandoned, for the university degree she'd left incomplete when Mama got sick, for the person she might have been in a different life with different luck. She cried for the girl who'd believed hard work was enough. Scene 6. First anonymous gift. On Wednesday, Amara arrived at work to find a small package on her desk. It was wrapped in plain brown paper, her name written in careful print. No return address. She glanced around the office, co-workers focused on their screens, the morning routine proceeding normally. Nobody paid attention to her. She opened it carefully. Inside, 100,000 Nigerian nairas in cash and a handwritten note. I saw you once working late, making sure everything was perfect even though no one was watching. That kind of integrity is rare. Please accept this with no strings attached. You deserve breathing room. A friend Amara's hand shook so violently she nearly dropped the money. 100,000 naira. More than a month's salary. Enough to pay rent, buy food, stop the funeral home's calls. Enough to breathe. She read the note again, searching for clues. The handwriting was masculine, confident. The paper was expensive, heavy stock. Someone with resources. Someone who'd noticed her. Who? Her first instinct was suspicion. Nothing came free, especially not this much money. But the note's tone wasn't predatory. It was gentle, almost apologetic, as if the giver knew the gift might wound her pride. She sat at her desk, money and note clutched in trembling hands, tears building behind her eyes. She wanted to refuse it, to maintain the dignity that was her only remaining possession. But Chitty's face flashed through her mind, thin, hungry, growing up in a molding room because his sister couldn't provide better. Pride was expensive. She couldn't afford it anymore. Amara tucked the money into her bag, the note into her pocket. She'd keep it somewhere safe. Read it when the weight became unbearable. Someone had seen her. Someone cared. In Lagos's crushing anonymity, that meant everything. She didn't notice Obinna walking past her cubicle, barely glancing in her direction, his expression as stern and unreadable as ever. Scene 7. Observer's investigation. Obinna read the background report in his office, each page deepening his understanding. Amara had been brilliant once. Full scholarship to University of Lagos, studying accounting. Top of her class for 2 years, internship offers from major firms. Then her mother's diagnosis and everything stopped. She dropped out in her 3rd year, taken the first job she could find. Administrative assistant at Titan, and never looked back. 5 years later, she was still in the same position. Not because she lacked ability, but because survival consumed all her energy. No time for professional development when you're choosing between rent and food. No advancement when you're missing work for hospital visits and landlord negotiations. The report detailed her finances with painful precision. 78,000 Nigerian Nairas monthly salary, 85,000 Nigerian Nairas rent, 45,000 Nigerian Nairas in monthly debt payments, 30,000 Nigerian Nairas for Chitty's school expenses, 20,000 Nigerian Nairas for food and utilities. The mathematics of her life didn't close. Every month she fell further behind, patching holes with loans that created new holes. She was drowning in slow motion. Obinna set down the report, feeling a familiar anger. Not at Amara, but at the system that created these traps. She'd done everything right, studied hard, worked harder, maintained integrity. And the system had crushed her anyway, because poverty wasn't about personal failure. It was about structural violence. He knew because he'd lived it. The difference was luck. A mentor who'd spotted his potential. A scholarship that covered everything. Opportunities that opened at exactly the right moments. Without those interventions, he'd be exactly where Amara was, brilliant and invisible, drowning and silent. He pulled up a spreadsheet, began calculating. Rent for a year in a decent area. 1.2 million Nigerian Nairas. Chitty's education through university. 3 million Nigerian Nairas. Clearing her mother's funeral debt. 180,000 Nigerian Nairas. Establishing a safety fund. 500,000 Nigerian Nairas. Total. 4.88 million Nigerian Nairas. A rounding error in his net worth. Life-changing for her. But direct intervention would humiliate her. He'd seen it in her eyes that day in his office. The shame of being seen at her most vulnerable. People like them needed to earn their victories. Charity felt like defeat. So he'd be strategic. The 100,000 Nigerian Nairas was immediate relief, framed as admiration rather than pity. Next would come opportunities disguised as merit. A sudden opening for a position she was overqualified for. A randomly selected professional development grant. Rent assistance from a housing program he'd create specifically for her. Each intervention would look organic, earned. She'd rebuild her life. And she'd believe she did it herself. That was crucial. Belief created confidence. Confidence created momentum. Momentum created permanent change. His assistant knocked. "Sir, the background on Ngozi Okafor-Williams." Obinna read the new report, his expression darkening. Ngozi's targeting of Amara was pathological. Dozens of documented incidents over 3 years. And HR had done nothing because her father was powerful, untouchable. That would change. But timing mattered. Address it too quickly, and Amara might realize the interventions were connected. Better to let Ngozi's cruelty become publicly undeniable first, then respond with institutional force. He made a note. Implement anonymous feedback system. Create paper trail for Ngozi's behavior. Build case for performance review. Patience. Strategy. He'd learned both building his empire. Now he'd use them for something more important. Scene 8. Antagonist escalates. Ngozi noticed the change immediately. On Friday, Amara came to work wearing new shoes, modest, practical flats from a street market, but new. Her posture seemed straighter. She'd even bought lunch from the canteen instead of skipping the meal entirely. Small changes, barely visible. But Ngozi had spent 3 years cataloging Amara's poverty, and these deviations screamed improvement. How? Administrative assistants didn't suddenly acquire disposable income. Not on tightened salaries, which meant someone was helping her. A man probably. The thought made Ngozi's lip curl. So Amara had found a sugar daddy. How predictable. How pathetic. She cornered Amara in the ladies' room during lunch, her smile sharp. New shoes, Amara? And I heard you ordered the actually good lunch today. Did you get a raise I don't know about? Amara washed her hands, kept her eyes down. Just managing better, ma. Managing better. Ngozi examined her own reflection, adjusting her diamond earrings. Or maybe you found a generous friend. A man who likes to help pretty girls in distress. Amara's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. It's okay, you can tell me, Ngozi continued, her voice dripping false sympathy. We all do what we must to survive. I don't judge, though you might want to be more discreet. People talk. She left before Amara could respond, satisfaction warm in her chest. The seed was planted. Soon others would wonder about Amara's sudden improvements, would make the same calculations Ngozi had made. Reputation was fragile, especially for someone like Amara, whose dignity was her only asset. In the following days, Ngozi made sure to mention Amara's mysterious benefactor in casual conversations. Never directly accusatory, just questions that let others draw their own conclusions. Have you noticed Amara seems different lately? Someone bought her new things. Sweet, right? I wonder who. She's been smiling more. Must be nice to have someone taking care of you. The whispers started. Glances followed Amara through hallways. Some colleagues maintained their usual politeness, but others, those who believed women like Amara had no business improving their stations without male assistance, began treating her with subtle contempt. Amara felt the shift, the weight of judgment she couldn't address because the accusations were never spoken directly. She wanted to defend herself, to explain she'd done nothing wrong. But defending against unspoken charges only made you look guilty. So she remained silent, working harder, head down, the way she'd always survived. But this time, she wasn't entirely alone. This time someone was watching and building a case. Scene 9. Second and third gifts. 2 weeks later, another gift appeared. Amara found it at home this time. A large box outside her door when she returned from work. Her heart hammered. How did they know where she lived? The intimacy of that knowledge should have frightened her, but the note included was disarming. A friend mentioned your brother has asthma. The rainy season is coming. This should help. Keep being the person you are. A friend inside. A year's supply of asthma medication. The expensive kind that prevented attacks rather than just treating them. Also vitamins, a nebulizer, extra inhalers. Thousands of naira worth of medical supplies that would keep Chidi healthy regardless of her financial situation. Amara sat on her floor and sobbed. Not sad tears this time. Relief. Gratitude. The overwhelming emotion of being seen, of having your specific needs understood and met without judgment. Chidi found her crying and panicked until she explained. Then he looked at the supplies, then at her, with his too old for 12 eyes. Who's helping us, sister? I don't know. Are we safe? She hugged him tightly. Yes. Yes. Someone good is watching out for us. The third gift arrived a month after the first, an envelope containing information about a housing assistance program for Titan employees. The application was already filled out in her name, approved, effective immediately. They'd cover the difference between her current rent and a better apartment in a safer area. All she had to do was sign. Amara researched the program obsessively. It existed, apparently, a recent initiative for support staff excellence. But the timing felt orchestrated. The precision with which it addressed her exact problem felt too convenient. Still, she signed. Pride had its place, but Chitty deserved walls without mold, neighbors who didn't scream through the night, a home that felt safe. They moved into the new apartment in Suralere 3 weeks later. 2 bedrooms, actual windows, a kitchen with working appliances. Chitty ran from room to room, disbelieving, joy transforming his usually serious face. That night, Amara stood in her own bedroom, and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not the desperate, fragile kind that shatters at the first setback, but solid hope. Foundation hope. Someone believed she deserved better, believed it enough to make it happen. She pulled out all 3 notes, read them again. Same handwriting. Same tone, respectful, encouraging, careful. Someone with resources and conscience. Someone who understood dignity. Who are you? She wondered. And why me? In his penthouse, Olumide reviewed the update from his assistant. Amara successfully relocated, Chitty thriving, financial pressure significantly reduced. Good. The foundation was laid. Now for the professional development. He drafted an email to HR. Identify high potential support staff for advanced training program. Focus on those with incomplete degrees. Create pathways to completion while working. Amara's name would be on that list. But so would 10 others, maintaining the fiction of institutional process rather than individual intervention. Patience. Strategy. Transformation. Scene 10. Protagonist's small victory. The opportunity came in the form of a promotion. Titan was creating a new position. Executive Coordinator. A role bridging administrative support and junior management. Competitive application, open to all staff. Focused on potential rather than credentials. Interviews in 3 weeks. Amara stared at the announcement, her heart racing. This was several levels above her current position. Better salary, better prospects, actual career progression. But competing against people with completed degrees, with networks she didn't have, with confidence born from never having struggled. Keep being the person you are, the note had said. She applied. The 3 weeks became a blur of preparation. She studied at night after Chitty slept, reviewing business principles and management theory she'd learned years ago at university. Her coworkers offered mixed reactions, some encouraging, others skeptical that someone like her could compete at that level. Ngozi was delighted. Another opportunity for public failure. Another chance to remind Amara of her place. The interview panel consisted of 3 senior executives Amara had never spoken to directly. She sat across from them in her best outfit, still modest, still obviously lower tier, but clean and professional. Her hands shook. She forced them still. They asked about her experience, her vision for the role, her management philosophy. She answered honestly, drawing on 5 years of observing executives, of understanding the machinery beneath corporate success. She spoke about dignity in workplace culture, about institutional knowledge held by support staff, about leadership as service. One executive, a woman named Mrs. Adeoye, leaned forward. You left university in your 3rd year. Why should we believe you'll complete the degree this position requires? Amara met her eyes. Because when I left I was alone. My mother was dying and I had no support system. Now I have reasons to finish. My brother, this opportunity, proof that the system sometimes rewards merit over privilege. I won't waste a second chance. Mrs. Adeoye nodded slowly. Olumide, sitting at the panel's end in his capacity as CEO, said nothing. But his eyes tracked every word, every gesture. He'd insisted on joining this interview, claiming interest in the new program. In reality, he wanted to see her shine. She did. 2 days later, Amara received the offer. Executive Coordinator, starting salary 185,000 Nigerian Nairas, benefits package, and company-sponsored degree completion program. She read the letter 3 times before believing it was real. Then she ran to the bathroom and cried again, this time with pure joy. 5 years of invisible labor, finally visible. 5 years of proving herself, finally acknowledged. When she returned to her desk, she found a handwritten note tucked under her keyboard. This is your merit, not anyone's charity. You earned it. Now show them what you're capable of. A friend, she smiled through fresh tears. Her mysterious benefactor had known she'd need that reminder. That her first instinct would be doubt, would be fear that this too was a gift rather than achievement. But the interview had been real. Her answers had been earned. This victory was hers. Across the office, Ngozi watched Amara celebrate with coworkers, saw the genuine congratulations, the hugs, the respect. Her own rage built like pressure. This wasn't supposed to happen. People like Amara weren't supposed to rise. She would fix this. She would remind everyone who Amara really was. A poor girl playing in a world she didn't belong to, a fraud, a charity case. She would destroy this before it went further. Scene 11. The sabotage. Ngozi's opportunity came during the quarterly financial audit. As special projects consultant, she had access to sensitive areas, mainly because her father ensured she did. She browsed executive files regularly, looking for leverage, for gossip, for anything that maintained her position as someone important. She found something better. An accounting discrepancy in the executive coordinator transition documents. 500,000 Nigerian nairas missing from a petty cash fund, coinciding with Amara's new position preparation. The timing was too perfect. The amount was significant but not catastrophic. Enough to be believed as opportunistic theft, not so much as to trigger immediate police involvement. And Amara's history of poverty made motive obvious. Ngozi smiled at her computer screen. She wouldn't even need to plant evidence. Just raise questions. Let others connect dots. Poor girl suddenly gets promotion, money goes missing, her lifestyle improves mysteriously. The story wrote itself. She started carefully, mentioning the discrepancy to her father during dinner. He frowned. Board members hated financial irregularities, and promised to raise it at the next meeting. Then she mentioned it to HR, framing it as concern rather than accusation. I noticed something odd in the accounts. Probably nothing, but shouldn't we investigate? I'd hate for someone to take advantage of Mr. Nwosu's generosity with the new position. HR, already nervous about the promotion of someone without a degree, began their own quiet inquiry. Within a week, whispers circulated. Amara heard her name followed by silences, saw meetings that stopped when she approached. The atmosphere shifted, poisoned with suspicion. On Friday, she was called to a conference room. HR director, internal auditor, and 2 executives she didn't recognize. No Mr. Nwosu. They told her to sit. Miss Okonkwo, we're investigating a financial irregularity. 500,000 Nigerian nairas missing from the operational fund. You were one of 5 people with access during the relevant period. Amara's mind went blank. I've never touched. We're not accusing you, the HR director said, though her tone suggested otherwise. We're investigating everyone with access. But we need to ask, have you made any unusual deposits recently? Any unexpected income? The trap was beautiful. If she mentioned her mysterious benefactor, it sounded like a lie, a convenient explanation for money she'd stolen. If she denied having money, they'd investigate her bank account and find the 100,000 Nigerian nairas deposit, the improved living situation, all the things Ngozi had already catalogued. I received a gift, Amara said quietly, a few months ago. 100,000 Nigerian nairas. I thought someone was being kind. The executives exchanged glances. The auditor made notes. The HR director's expression was pure skepticism. How convenient. It's true. I have the note, the original envelope. Notes can be fabricated. Miss Okonkwo will need to see your bank statements, your financial records. And we're suspending you pending investigation. With pay for now. Amara felt the room spin. This couldn't be happening. Not when she'd finally started climbing. Not when Chitty was settling into a safer home. when her debts were clearing, when life was becoming survivable. She left the building in a daze, co-workers avoiding her eyes. By Monday, everyone would assume guilt. Suspension meant suspicion, and suspicion in Lego's corporate culture meant guilt regardless of evidence. That night, she sat in her new apartment. The place that had felt like a blessing now felt like evidence of theft, and finally let despair consume her. She'd been so careful, so honest. And it didn't matter. Someone had framed her, or the universe was simply cruel, and either way she was drowning again. She didn't eat, didn't sleep, just sat in the dark, watching her life collapse in slow motion. Scene 12. Observer steps in. Obinna received the alert at 6:47 a.m. Saturday morning. Urgent financial investigation involving Amara Okonkwo. He read the report with mounting rage. The missing money, the timing, the suspicious focus on Amara specifically when four others had equal access. This wasn't investigation. This was assassination. He called his head of security. I want surveillance footage from every camera near the operations office for the past 2 months. I want financial records for every employee with access to that fund. And I want Ngozi Okafor-Williams's activity logged minute by minute. Sir, Miss Okafor-Williams is board adjacent. If we investigate her. Did I stutter? No, sir. By Sunday afternoon, Obinna had his answer. The security footage showed Ngozi entering the operations office 3 times during the relevant period. Unusual for her role, which had no financial responsibilities. The accounting records showed the money hadn't disappeared, but had been transferred to a discretionary fund Ngozi's father controlled, then marked as missing in the original location. It wasn't theft. It was paperwork manipulation designed to create an investigation that would target whoever Ngozi wanted destroyed. Elegant, evil, and thoroughly documented. Obinna made several calls. His lawyer, his PR team, his HR director. By Monday morning, he had a plan. But first, he did something unprecedented. He called Amara directly. She answered on the 5th ring, her voice hollow. Hello. Miss Okonkwo. Obinna Nwosu. I need you to come to my office Monday morning. 8 Uhr morgens. Silence. Then quietly. Am I being fired? You're being vindicated. 8 Uhr morgens. Don't be late. He ended the call before she could respond. Mysterious benefactor or not, she deserved to see him handle this publicly. She deserved to watch justice happen in real time. In her apartment, Amara stared at her phone. The CEO calling her personally, promising vindication. Was this real? Or was she dreaming, broken by stress? Chidi touched her arm. Sister? You look like you saw a ghost. Maybe I did, she whispered. Maybe I did. Scene 13. Vindication. Monday morning, 8 a.m. Amara walked into Titan Enterprises expecting termination. Instead, she found the main conference room filled with people. The investigation committee, HR director, several executives, and Obinna Nwosu at the head of the table. His expression was granite. Sit, he said. She sat, hands folded to stop their shaking. Obinna nodded to his security chief, who began a presentation. Footage appeared on the large screen. Ngozi entering the operations office, accessing financial systems she had no business touching, transferring funds, altering records. The money was never missing, Obinna said, his voice cold and precise. It was moved deliberately to create the appearance of theft. The investigation was initiated by Ngozi Okafor-Williams, who also planted the suspicion about Miss Okonkwo through carefully worded suggestions to board members and HR. He clicked to another slide. Communications logs showing Ngozi's calculated campaign. This is corporate sabotage with intent to destroy a colleague's reputation and career. It's also fraud, misrepresenting financial records to trigger false investigation. The HR director had gone pale. The executives were silent. Amara couldn't breathe. Obinna turned to her. Miss Okonkwo, you have my personal apology. This investigation should never have progressed beyond initial review. Our protocols failed you. I failed you. Theo. Apologizing. To her. Your suspension is lifted immediately. Your promotion is confirmed. And you'll receive compensation for emotional distress. Nigerian Naira 200,000, which I'm paying personally. He stood, signaling the meeting's end. But before dismissing everyone, he added, Miss Okafor Williams is terminated effective immediately. Her father's board position will be under review, and I'm implementing an anonymous reporting system, so this never happens again. After the others left, Obinna remained. Amara sat frozen, processing. How did you know? She whispered. I pay attention. But why would you? I'm nobody. You're someone who works with integrity despite having every reason not to. That's not nobody. He handed her an envelope. The compensation check. Take a few days. Process this. Come back when you're ready. She took the envelope with shaking hands. Sir, I don't know how to thank. Thank me by being exactly who you've always been. That's enough. He left her sitting there, tears streaming down her face. Not pain this time. Not relief. Something bigger. The feeling of being seen not just in suffering but in character. Of having your worth recognized by someone with power who chose to use it justly. By afternoon, the story had spread through Titan like wildfire. Ngozi escorted from the building by security. Her father resigning from the board preemptively. Amara vindicated completely. The narrative shifted. She wasn't a thief. She was a target who'd survived. Co-workers who'd avoided her now apologized. Some genuine, some performative. Amara accepted both with grace. She understood now, people were scared. Scared of power, scared of being next. Scared to defend anyone who might be guilty. She couldn't fault them for their humanity. But she also wouldn't forget who'd stood by her. The memory of silence had its uses. That evening she found one more note tucked into her bag. The hardest steel is forged in the hottest fire. You survived. Now thrive. A friend, she held it close. This evidence of her guardian angel. Whoever they were, they'd saved her twice now. Given her foundation. Given her justice. Someday she'd find out who. Someday she'd repay this kindness. But tonight she'd just breathe. And believe finally that maybe the universe wasn't entirely cruel. SCT-3. Climax and Resolution Scene 14. Big reveal set up 6 months later. Amara's life was unrecognizable. The executive coordinator role had blossomed into genuine leadership. She managed a team of 12, coordinated between departments, and contributed to strategy meetings. Her ideas, shaped by years of observing from the bottom, brought fresh perspective executives valued. She'd also restarted her degree, attending evening classes at University of Lagos. The company's scholarship covered tuition. Her own determination covered the rest. Chidi thrived. Better home, better school, better health. He was applying to secondary school she'd once thought impossible. Her baby brother brilliant and safe. The mysterious gifts had stopped after her vindication, which confirmed her suspicion. Whoever helped her had been watching, had known exactly when she'd stabilized enough to fly independently. They'd given her wings, not a cage. In October, an invitation arrived at her desk, Titan Enterprises' annual gala, celebrating the company's 20th anniversary. All staff invited, formal attire required. Amara stared at the invitation. She'd never attended these events. Administrative staff were technically invited but culturally excluded. And formal attire meant expensive dresses she couldn't afford. She was about to decline when another package appeared. Inside, a deep blue evening dress, elegant but not ostentatious, her exact size. The note read, "You've worked behind the scenes long enough. Time to be seen. Wear this. Attends. Trust me." A friend, her heart hammered. This felt different. Final. Like her mysterious benefactor was preparing to step from shadow into light. She tried on the dress that night. It fit perfectly, transforming her from competent professional into someone who belonged in rooms with chandeliers and champagne. Chidi whistled. "You look like a boss, sister." "I feel like an imposter." "Then fake it until it's true. That's what you always tell me." She laughed, but her stomach churned with anxiety. These galas were for executives, board members, society people. What would she even say to them? How would she navigate conversations about vacations she'd never take? Restaurants she couldn't afford. But the note said, "Trust me." And this person had never steered her wrong. She'd go. She'd be